Hi, this is Donald here, and this is my review of Brandon Sanderson's book, Warbreaker. Warbreaker is a high fantasy book, which means a fantasy setting with kings and castles and knights and magic, not quite as dark and gritty as something like Game of Thrones. And it's about a city of people who have all these vibrant colors and magics and who are ruled by a god king. A neighboring kingdom and this god king's kingdom are in a tense relationship, and reluctantly they agree to do a marriage agreement. The god king and the daughter of the other kingdom's king try to marry and try and bring peace to their kingdoms. And this is a story about essentially the politics between these two countries, though it's really from the point of view of this god king's kingdom. This is a Brandon Sanderson book, but is only loosely or not connected at all to his other series like Mistborn or the Stormlight Archives. So this is more of a one and done kind of book. Maybe there's a book 2 in the series, but this is really just a one and done book in my opinion. I bought the physical copy of this book, which is the typical mass market paperback, cheap paper, kind of small. The book is actually 650 pages long, just about, so it's quite the read. I was surprised. Now, talking about this book, if you're familiar with Brandon Sanderson, the best way I can describe this book is similar to Elantris, which is the first Brandon Sanderson book that he ever wrote. Similar to Elantris, but it is much improved with better writing, plot, story, setting, world, characters, mythology, etc., etc. It also suffers from the same problems in my opinion. At least when I read Elantris and when I finished reading this book, I had a similar feeling at the end. The climax of this book just feels a little off, and the plot gets good, but never quite as good as it could have been. I think the execution is a little shy of being great. I found that this book essentially was a really interesting world with interesting characters in the city and the magic system, but there's like 400 pages of explaining the backstory. I wished more of it was meaningful, if that makes any sense. I was really engaged with the backstory and the history of the region, but it just seemed like world building for the sake of world building, without actually being necessary to really tell the story about these two kingdoms. I did love the world and the world building, but I wish it had contributed more to the main plot. Much of this plot, in my opinion, and sometimes it became frustrating, was if only person X is less naive or less careless or less annoying or would just tell the truth, the plot would be so much more simple. And that's really a huge part of the conflict. It's the kind of story where you're talking to one of the characters talks to another character and asks a question, and character 2 refuses to answer the question. And then the question gets answered 200 pages later, right? It can be a little frustrating that way. Also, the characters were pretty good, but some of them were actually quite annoying, and one of them was actually designed to be very annoying, and it just got old pretty quickly, and it was a little overplayed, I thought. However, there is a good world, there is a good plot, it's fun, maybe a little intense though, but it's still a fun book. Don't really be expecting a really happy adventure story. This is more of a scheming, political, religious kind of story. Would I recommend this book? Yes, I would definitely recommend this book to fantasy fans, especially Brandon Sanderson fans. This book was actually recommended to me by my friend who was a big Brandon Sanderson fan. If you're not so much into fantasy, I think you could still enjoy it. It's definitely a different kind of book. In hindsight, I do wish the plot was a bit more fun, a little less serious, and a little bit more relaxed. But overall, I enjoyed it. And that is my review of Brandon Sanderson's book, Warbreaker. Let me know if you agree or disagree in the comments below. I know there are a lot of Brandon Sanderson fans, and I've also read quite a few of his books too. So maybe I'll do a couple more of his books as reviews. Thanks.